France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and others have each developed some of the world's most efficient and effective rail networks, but they're just not well connected. Take Milan, for example, Europe's 8th largest metro area. While a world-leading network exists south to the rest of Italy and north into nearby Switzerland, just 3 trains go farther. A fairly frequent service to Paris, a once-daily trip to Frankfurt, and an overnight train to Munich and Vienna. This isn't an isolated edge case. Paris and Madrid are the European Union's 2 largest metro areas, and yet they have 0 direct trains running between them. In fact, the farthest one can travel from France's borders on a direct high-speed train from Paris is London, Amsterdam, Munich, or Milan. And not only is there a dearth of direct trains, but connections are hardly straightforward. A Herculean effort went into digging a tunnel from France to the UK to connect the 2 countries' rail networks, and yet in practice, they connect London to the continent. Not England, and certainly not the UK. Technical constraints currently prevent practical cross-border passenger service beyond London or by anyone but Eurostar, but the Eurostar service does little to integrate with the UK's existing domestic network. To travel from Paris to Manchester, for example, one must individually book the Eurostar from Paris to London, then upon arrival, walk 20 minutes from St. Pancras to Euston Station to take another train, which also must be booked individually up to Manchester. The fact that this itinerary cannot be booked as a single ticket both means people are less likely to identify it as a possibility, and that if the first train is delayed enough that the second is missed, there's no obligation for the operator to rebook the traveler onto the next one. So, while only 4 hours of train travel stand between France's largest and the UK's 2nd largest city, a competitive number versus air travel, these inefficiencies functionally increase it to an untenable level. The competitor, planes, also significantly undercut trains on fares. Unlike airlines, who price connecting itineraries lower than direct to compensate for the inconvenience, the fact that the 2 segments of this trip must be booked separately and are therefore priced separately makes this functionally impossible, even if it would be a winning strategy. One would be lucky to find a combination of train fares totaling $150 between Paris and Manchester, while airfares on this route typically sit below $100. This phenomena is consistent continent-wide. Average train fares between Paris and Barcelona typically sit 3 times higher than airfares. From Amsterdam to London, it's 4 times higher. Cases like Milan to Frankfurt do exist, where trains only cost marginally more, but that's not the average. In Europe, crossing borders by rail is more expensive and less convenient. This is no coincidence. The better part of a century ago, as Europe rebuilt and reconnected in the wake of World War II, countries across the continent searched for opportunities to revitalize their war-torn economies. A number of them, especially warm southern nations like Spain and Italy, identified the potential of tourism. This conveniently coincided with the opening of the jet age, in which new aircraft development and economies of scale made air travel faster and more affordable. Package holiday providers took advantage of this to offer increasingly inexpensive trips to increasingly far-flung destinations, and some even went further to set up airlines entirely dedicated to flying vacationers like Condor and Britannia Airways. As travel abroad became affordable, cooler coastal towns closer to home, like England's Margate, Torquay, and Blackpool, started a slow slide into ruin. But simultaneously, to the south, tourist numbers exploded as sunny seaside towns quickly developed into destinations. The oil crisis in the 70s stunted this growth, but it soon accelerated again in the 90s as the business model pioneered by Condor, Britannia, and others was refined and innovated upon. The budget airline was formed. Ryanair, EasyJet, and others not only offered lower fares by themselves, they also added market pressure that pushed down airfares industry-wide. Flying was now an approachable luxury, and destinations previously too far for a practical vacation became the most intuitive options. Decades on, budget airlines have thoroughly taken over travel across Europe. They grew out of connecting the north of Europe to its south, but today go east, west, and everywhere in between. Meanwhile, however, trains. The same oil crisis that stunted the growth of international vacationing in the 70s accelerated the development of high-speed rail. Facing a similar resource scarcity decades before, Japan captured the world's attention by opening the first electric high-speed rail service between Tokyo and Osaka, the Shinkansen. Embarrassed by being beaten to the punch, major economies globally started developing their own plans for electric high-speed rail. While the US, UK, Italy, and others made marginal progress in speeding up their trains, the first to properly match the Shinkansen's speeds was France. On September 22, 1981, France's Ligne à Grande Vitesse Sud-Est opened for passenger service. What was a 3-hour and 40-minute trip between Paris and Lyon the day before now took just 2 hours and 40 minutes. The engineering effort behind these smooth, gentle tracks was colossal. The construction cost some $18.7 million per mile, or $11.6 million per kilometer. But as the country's first and third largest cities, a first line between Paris and Lyon made sense, especially since it also reduced travel time to Marseille, the second largest. France continued developing this network in this intuitive manner, opening LGV Atlantique in 1989 to speed up travel to Rennes, Nantes, and Bordeaux, then extending the line past Lyon to speed up trips to Marseille. The nation's most ambitious connection occurred next, with the opening of LGV Nord, which linked Paris to Calais, the start of the brand new Channel Tunnel to Britain.